Welcome to Transforming Transformational, a TeachBeyond podcast. I'm Kian.
And I'm Heather. We're here to explore what it means to be transformed in our own lives and how that overflows to living lives of transformational impact in our communities.
This is a special summer bonus episode talking about going back to school.
Now, Kian, I hear that this is the latest news in your house, that the boys are already back to school. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Our school system actually just changed from a regular kind of school year to a year-round school. So our summer was a lot shorter and school is already back in session.
Wow. That does sound like such a shift to go from having a longer break and then kind of the big start to the year. So how's it going with them? How are the kids liking it?
Yeah, they are actually doing really well. And the biggest news is that one of our kids just started kindergarten, and let's just say preschool and pre-K did not go very well. The school year went well, but the first day of school, the first week of school did not go well. He did not want to go. So we were really nervous going into this school year, but somehow, we don't know how, it went really well. He went into class, sat at his desk, and was just as happy as could be and let us leave the classroom without any tears. So we
Wow.
are so thankful. And me and my wife are both still very shocked that it went well.
Well, that is a good reason to be shocked, a good
Yes.
surprise, good news. I'm sure it's a relief that the school year is off to a good start so far.
Yeah, it just makes everything so much nicer when the kids are excited about school, excited about their
Mm,
teachers and their classroom.
yeah. Do they have friends in their classes from previous years, or is it kind of starting all over?
It's mostly starting all over. There's one or two that they know from
Okay.
before, which is great. I mean, they do well with it. So they're not
Right.
disappointed they're missing out on their old friends.
Right. Right. Yeah. I know in some schools, it's like basically the same kids every year in
Yeah.
your class, whereas others, it can be quite a shift from year to year.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
brand new. For this special bonus episode, we are joined by our colleague and the Director of School Services for TeachBeyond, Megan Randolph.
Megan graduated from Abilene Christian University with a degree in political science. She earned a teaching certification in social studies, as well as a Harvard certification in school management and leadership.
Megan taught in the United States for several years and then joined TeachBeyond to serve at Grace International School in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where she worked for 8 years. Megan now lives in the UK.
After our conversation with Megan, we have a special treat. We have some back to school tips from some of our past guests, too. So if you're heading back to school soon, hopefully this will all get the wheels turning with ideas to make the new school year a great one. If you've already started school, or maybe you don't begin a new school year for a while, it's never too late to implement the suggestions we mentioned in this episode.
Let's go over to the conversation with Megan now.
Welcome to the podcast, Megan.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Megan, we're excited for this conversation. As we get started, we're talking about back to school. When you were a kid, were you excited, nervous? What were you feeling?
I think it was probably a combination of excited and nervous. I think
Mm.
I loved summer and loved the freedom
Mhm.
of the schedule, but also really thrive in having some structure in life. So I think I enjoyed that back to school. Plus, you got new outfits and things.
And the new school supplies too, right?
Oh,
It was just
totally.
part of the
Yes, loved it.
experience.
Loved it all.
Hmm. So that was when you were a kid. When you were a teacher, was there some of that same mixed feeling about going back to?
Yes, I think so. I think the rhythm of an academic year is necessary for the
Mm,
longevity of teachers, where
yeah.
you get that bit of rest, and hopefully there is some really good rest in there. Hopefully, as a teacher, you're also passionate about your work, so you're excited to get back, but also grieving
Right.
that ability to, go to the restroom whenever you want and eat lunch whenever you might want and not have to be
Right.
up at the crack of dawn. Those things are good things. So
Yeah.
seeing that go, but also excited to get back to what you love to do.
Right. Yeah. Those different
Yeah.
seasons and being able
Yes.
to appreciate each of those. So thinking about getting into the back of school mindset, preparations, what did you do as a teacher to prepare for that going back to school feeling for those weeks leading up to the school year? Or even what have you seen others doing that you think is worth trying out?
I think it's fairly common in a lot of educational settings now for even a school or a principal or a leadership team to kind of pick a focus or a theme or a verse for the year. And if you don't have that already for you, I'd recommend doing that yourself. So,
Mm,
whether you kind of adopt theirs or whether you are like, okay, that's great, but I'm going to also have my own. I've seen a
sure.
lot of teachers do that, and it's sort of based on season of life or where they are in their career. So I think picking something like that, I also recommend just reflection, just the power of reflection, reflecting back on what worked well last year and what didn't.
Mhm,
Hopefully you did that at the end of the year and maybe pulling out that reflection and looking back at it. But also, okay, what do you want this year to
mhm,
be based on that? What are your areas of strength you want to capitalize on professionally? What are
mhm.
areas you want to work on? Where did you see your spirituality and growth in that you want to continue this year, or what do you want to do differently? What were some hard boundaries for you personally as far as turning off work on weekends, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So just doing a good reflection and engaging where you are and where you want to be this year
Mm.
as you start. So I call that kind of the planning to re-engage, and
Mhm.
so looking at your rhythms, re-engaging your mind in the work, whether that's reading a book that reminds you about why you find your content area or your work inspiring,
Mm.
or just something to get you starting thinking about that. I often find maybe that's a professional development opportunity as well. I
Mhm.
also, it may be simple, but getting new pens for grading or new post-it notes,
Yes.
all those are little things, but I find that anything that's exciting, to do kind of in those last little bits of summer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also loved picking out a new first day of school outfit. That didn't necessarily mean I was buying it, but
It's
kind of
carrying over
planning
from
that.
when you were a
It
kid,
is.
right? Like,
It
come
is.
on.
Yes, it is. So I just think anything that you can make it exciting, because it is, as much as you love your work, it is sad to see some of those relaxing, being in charge of your own schedule, good days going out the window. But doing things like that to get back in, re-engaging and focusing, I think are helpful. I never really did it, but I know people that did. They planned like a spiritual retreat for themselves, just to kind of reset, and I can see how that would be really beneficial. But
Mhm.
those
Yeah.
are my thoughts on that.
I love the wide variety of, getting new pens and selecting a theme and the taking time for reflection and pulling that in because there
Mm,
are really practical things we can do. And then there are also things that can prepare us mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And it's all important. And it's okay to say
yes,
that,
yes.
setting up my calendar with the color coding that I
Mhm,
want that's going to set me
mhm.
up for success is important as well as what I'm putting into that calendar and the boundaries that I'm setting and all of that. It goes
Right,
together.
yeah.
These are so helpful as we think about what you can do to prepare and then maybe more moving into the classroom of what does make it so important to set up the first week of school well and make
Yeah.
it set yourself up for success for the rest of the year just based on that first week.
Yeah, I think I would say plan, 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 not because you have to stick to it, but when you have a plan, you're actually able to pivot and make changes on the go better. So I believe
Mhm.
firmly in planning and planning well and thoroughly. But I also think at the end of the first week of school, what do we want our students or our learners that are in our care to know? Well, we want them to know that we care about
Mhm.
them. We want them to know that we value excellence, and we, in my opinion, want them to know that we're passionate about our work, the
Mhm.
content, and also the work of education. So, what does it look like to set up? I mean, it's going to look different in every educational context, but kind of backwards planning that. Well, what activities do we want to have in the first week of school? What sort of things do we want to be focusing and pointing toward those three things we want students to
Mhm.
know? So not necessarily any specific, besides plan it, make an actual plan for it. Don't just hope they walk out at the end of the year or the end of the week thinking, oh, that teacher really cares about me. That would be my thoughts about the first week.
It's really interesting. Those three things, again, are quite different. And I'm guessing that most teachers would gravitate towards one or two of those more than the other or others in
Mm-hmm.
that, whether it's, I really love my subject and I want you to know, how much I love like social studies for
Mm-hmm.
you versus, someone who's like, I just want everyone to feel like they're seen and they're welcomed and, we want all of those things to happen, but we
Yes.
might naturally do one of those more. And
Hmm.
so we can think about planning for the others, or maybe even talking with another teacher in the building who might be able to say, oh, this is what I do, so that we can balance out the areas, wouldn't you say, that we might not more naturally be drawn toward.
Yeah, get to know the people that you're teaming with, either
Mm,
at that grade level or in your content area, or maybe it's just in the high school building if you're in a multi building campus. Yeah, get to know them because their ideas rub off on you. And I think that's one of our greatest assets as educators is
mm.
knowing what other people are doing. That was one of my favorite things, was just learning from colleagues. So yeah, that's another good point.
So it does sound really important to have a really good week set up for the first week of school. Can you talk through how you look ahead and how you plan that for somebody new to teaching or somebody who does want to really invest in that first week?
Yeah, I actually think the idea of backwards planning that most educators will know some bit about and from their training is that you're actually looking at the whole picture of the school year, the whole academic year. So you're looking at, okay, I've got this content, I have these standards I need to meet. These are broken down into hopefully unit kind of situations and topics. So then I look at how long am I spending on each thing. And I'm literally going, I have these many days of instruction. I have this content. I need to spend this percentage on this kind of, and then you're backwards planning. So I'm spending something like 8 instructional days on this unit, 14 on this. So it's really getting into the nitty gritty. But if you plan that big picture now to start the school year, and of course, you're planning so that things can evolve and change as the school year goes on. You can't plan for pandemics or snow days or whatever might get in the way, and an added national holiday, depending on where you are in the world. So it's flexible, but if you have that plan in place, then I would say, okay, let's say you're in a quarter or a trimester system, then you can more intimately plan that first grading period. And I think if you're looking, okay, I'm going to do assessments on sort of these weeks, and then you have an idea. And then it allows you to plan a week at a time for those more involved lesson plans. So that's what I would, when I say planning, like that's the big picture. Like you're starting with the end in mind, which hopefully is not news to any teacher, and then working backward on how long do I need to spend, on what topics am I covering and how long. And if you can do that bigger picture planning now at the start of the school year, I think that will save so much time and allow you freedom later on to pivot as you need.
That's the key. That I love that point, that planning actually sets us up then to be able to be more flexible and to be able
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
see, okay, I actually do have some wiggle room in this week to take an extra day on this or something like that.
Yeah.
To get really practical, I don't know what this looks like for you, Megan, or what you've seen people do, but I was old school and literally just printed out calendars and really liked, being able to draw, okay, color in like this block of time is going to be for this unit. This, is a week that our whole school is doing an activity that I'm not going to have class, put in those big rocks. So what
Right.
you're talking about in a very practical form sometimes looks like, getting all the calendars in front of you for the
Hmm.
whole school year, not to write
Hmm.
down every lesson that's happening every day, but to put the big picture out there. And that then helps it not feel a little bit out of control. Like, well, I hope I can get to everything. It's like, no, I have a
Yes.
general idea. And while we're running a week behind the whole school year, we, just got off on a slow start for some reason, or the school year got delayed for some reason, some crazy reason, then I
Yeah.
know I'm going to have to cut something along the way, and having that awareness.
And that also, so that's your instructional bit, but then, there's so much administrative bits that come into teaching as
Mm,
well. And you've got professional development on these. I would even say plan those things in, block in your grading time 2-3 times
hmm.
a week, block it, or your marking, whatever it might be,
Nice.
wherever you are in the world, but block in your learning, your professional development, your email time. So you've
Mm,
got a daily schedule as well with the
nice.
administrative tasks you need to do. So I think even zeroing in on your daily schedule is important,
Yeah.
and allowing that to change as you get into the actual practical of it, but
Mhm.
having a plan for success.
Megan, have you seen any particular activities or, yeah, just intentional planning when thinking about building trust in a classroom or establishing routines and things like that? Any specific
Mhm.
ideas of executing on the plan and how that can be developed?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've seen lots of I would say try to figure out how to do that in a way that it intersects with your content area. So
Mm,
maybe let's say I know David I. Smith in his book on Christian teaching, he talks about he was at a higher ed level, but he talked about establishing a listening classroom and a positive classroom culture by having partners he was teaching German. Partners practice their German skills by sharing about their summer, which seems like such an
uh-huh.
easy no-brainer first, like blah, boring first day of school activity. But at the end, what he drew out of it was great. You've practiced some of your German, you've dusted off those old files in your brain, but you've also learned about a classmate. And let me tell you, when
Yeah.
we practice our German in this class, what's most important is that you're listening to each other because we
Mm,
value each other and pulling out those bigger lessons that maybe are taught in a content level setting. So I think that's one way you can kind of parallel those two plans, I would say. So find a way to,
right.
if you will, kill two birds with one stone in that kind of
Right.
sense. So that's a higher ed example, but you can transfer that to all sorts of levels.
Yeah. And it seems, I mean, just to take that example, being sensitive to the class to
Mm.
know, okay, in this environment, there are some people who go on really grand vacations and there are other kids
Mm-hmm.
who feel the disparity of that. And so
Mhm,
knowing our classroom setting and our community helps us to
mhm.
know how to plan activities and plan those conversations that don't have people bringing in a show and tell, for example, that then, can ostracize certain students or,
Yeah.
just being aware of asking questions about family life or anything like that, like just being sensitive to the
Mhm,
community and what you may or may not know about that community to be a learner yourself, right?
mhm.
As the teacher too. There's a lot that goes into the beginning of the year and we're giving, we're painting the picture of how much planning
Yes.
goes into it. And I
Yeah.
want to go back to how you said, picking that theme for the year or the bigger, kind of
Mhm.
through line. And we can't do everything. Like you can't have
Mm-mm.
40 themes. That would be very overwhelming for the class and it would
Mhm.
defeat the purpose, right? So it seems that in all of these areas, you can't do everything. Like you're not going to be able to
No.
do every page of the textbook, every,
Mm-mm.
supplemental reading, every activity simulation, whatever. And
Mhm.
so allowing also the grace to say, okay, I can't do everything. So what am I going to focus in on? My classroom management plan can't be everything all at once, perfect. um, I remember it was December of my first year of teaching, and I was like really wanting to try something new, but I was like, it's not the start of the year. And to
Yes.
tell myself, you can actually start something new on a Tuesday. You can just start
Oh,
something
yeah.
new and
Uh-huh.
it's fine. I did end up starting some new things with the new calendar year. So that was kind of the grace of the middle of the school year. But
Yes.
also on like, March 2nd is also fine.
It
And
is.
so there's grace for what you don't start on day one or week one, right?
Well, and I think that's also the beauty of the academic calendar is yes, you can start a month with something. I used to switch the seating chart every month. So you can start, or after actually, I started doing it when I first started. This is something I changed. I started every month when I first started teaching. And then I read some research about how where a student sits has a lot to do with memory. So it's a memory thing. So
Oh,
then I
wow.
started switching at the end of every unit. So talking about
Nice.
changing something, I have no idea when I changed that, if that was mid-year or not. But anyways, yes, there's lots of opportunities to start something new, but also the beauty of teaching is you get a new year and a semi
True.
new group of students potentially every academic year. So there's lots of opportunity to try and do things different. And students are appreciative of knowing what they can expect, but also very resilient to change.
Hmm.
So there you go.
I love these stories and these examples. And it's helpful to, even if you're not going to copy the exact example, it inspires you, kind of challenges you of like, okay, this is a new way to think about it. Do you have
Mhm.
any other story or anecdotes from specifically the beginning of the year that are helpful as we think about what other people can do?
Yeah. What I just think is what Heather has talked about already. Plan, put effort into it, pray about it, approach it in a positive manner, and then just make the best with what you can and with what you have, because at the end of the day, actually how you approach the first day of school is really going to set the tone for your students. So if you're approaching it in a stressed out, tired because you're trying to do all the things manner, it's really just not going to go well for the not set the tone you want for the academic year, let's say.
What a good point, Megan. And the reality is that there are so many potential stressors at the beginning of the year of things not going as we
Mm-hmm.
thought they would. And I'm thinking a lot of teachers within Teach Beyond are traveling right before, or maybe, just
Mm-hmm.
arriving on
Mm-hmm.
location close to the beginning of the school year, or maybe even within the first week or two. And so there are less than ideal situations with, like, as a teacher in our lives, as well as in the classroom building or the materials available, or we get a last minute change of class assignments. And I love that point that there is a choice element of, how am I
Hmm.
bringing myself into this classroom? Am I bringing this whirlwind of stress and, kind of creating an overwhelming experience for my students, or am I creating a space that's peaceful and, the listening
Mm-hmm.
environment you talked about?
Mm-hmm.
What about as an administrator? You also had some time as an administrator. And so if you're a school leader, someone who's maybe setting the tone, or, overseeing the building, any thoughts for administrators?
Yeah, to start the school year, I would say one of the things I really tried to do, wasn't always successful, is just clear that calendar for the start of the year, whether that's the
Mm,
first week or the first couple days, and just be present, walking around. There's so much um, of work that's done just simply walking around the school building and being visible. And there's fires that are put out, there's help that you're able to give, carrying in extra chairs to a classroom that suddenly has more students than the teacher saw on the roster that morning. Just little things like that, issues that can be taken care of simply by an administrator or leader walking around. That would be my biggest encouragement to school leaders this first week. And then beyond that, also, again, how are you going to get your work life in order so that you can best support the people on your team? So for me, that was very much making sure my calendar, like you talked about, having a calendar colored and events on it and all of that. Like, I loved having all that done, my office organized so that I can then be fully present in helping and supporting the staff. So yeah, not necessarily anything specific, but those are thoughts on that.
That's so good. Just the practical level of just walking around the school is so helpful,
Mm.
of just being there and serving. Thank you so much, Megan, for coming on and talking to us about these things, and the very practical and the wide range of suggestions you had for us. Before we let you go, we have one question we ask all our guests, and that is, what's one thing that's changing your life right now? So something big or something small, but something that's changing your life. So I'll go first just to give you a little bit of time to think about it. And the thing that's changing my life is kind of funny for this topic, is my kids have already started school. So we have a year-round calendar,
Ah,
which just started this year. So they actually
love it.
started mid-July, which is very unusual, but it's been going well, and it's definitely changing our life, having both of our older kids in a school building for most
yeah.
of the day. So it's been a big change in our house.
So what's changing your life is the quiet house.
Very much so. Yes.
And
What a
all
change of
the
pace.
parents around the world say amen here in the next few weeks. Yes,
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
that's
funny.
great. What's been changing my life lately is watching the Olympics. And I kind of wish that instead of continuous broadcasts for 3 or so weeks, we could just kind of spread out the love over the course of the whole year. But, I don't think that's kind of not the point. But there's so much to watch and want to see in these moments, of celebration and learning about the athletes and their various backgrounds and stories. And it's been fun to watch with friends, or just kind of while I'm doing stuff around the house. So, yeah, that's been changing my life. And I always love the international nature of the Olympics that brings so many different cultures to one place.
Very good. And a bonus point to that is see how you can bring the Olympics into your classroom to start off the school year.
Yes, yes, that is so fun. What a great idea. Megan, what's been changing your life lately?
Well, I think I would have to say I'm getting ready to leave on a work trip here in the next 36 hours. And I think what's currently changing my life is the Packer app
Oh.
and using it to get myself all organized. There's a theme here with organization. Get myself organized to pack well and efficiently. And so it provides you with like a pre-formatted packing list that you check off things as you go, which feels very exciting to get things done. But you can also edit it, and I'm just really enjoying that app.
I love it so much. Yeah, we really have set a good tone here of school planning, celebration. We're all kind of on brand with with our what's changing our lives. So that's great. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for sharing these suggestions, for these ideas, and just for getting us in this back of school mindset so that we can approach the year with grace for ourselves, but also some really tangible things we can do.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It was so great talking to Megan.
And now let's hear some tips from some of our past guests.
Hi, I'm Linda Cardamus from Teach for the Heart, and my best tip for the start of the school year is to really think through your classroom management and to have a plan to deal with various issues. I think a lot of times at the beginning of the year, we're so busy working on all the academics in the room and the setup and all of that that we don't stop and consider how are we going to address discipline issues. And then when they come, we have no idea what to do. And then it kind of spirals really, really quickly. So having a plan at the beginning of the year, what am I going to do the first time students are being disruptive or getting out of their seats or, blurting out answers is so important. So thinking that through is really vital. And then and that kind of tied to that is practicing procedures, not just expecting, even if you teach high school seniors, don't just expect that they'll have the procedures down. Take time to practice with them and be really insistent. Practice them as many times as you need to really have them down. And that will make just such a big difference in helping your classroom run smoothly.
One activity that I just came to really appreciate was having my students bring in things from home that were special to them. And so they would bring in a bag or bring in just a group of items that they shared. And just watching my students share before their peers. And some classes had cliques, like this group, they were the friends, but other people were a little excluded. And yet during this particular time, everyone was paying attention to all of the students, each one individually as they shared. And there was this kind of understanding of commonalities. Oh, you like that. Oh, I do too. Or, oh, that's what you're like, or that's who you are. And it gave this appreciation for them. So I found that to be just a really encouraging practice for kind of starting out this idea.
My name is Anna, and we serve in Germany. And a piece of advice that I would give to teachers as you start a new school year is try to remember as much as possible to give each student a clean slate, whatever. Oftentimes, students might have a reputation which could be good or bad, but just try to remember to view them as an amazing child of God and let them start the year with a clean slate.
Hi there. I am a teacher. I work in South Asia with TeachBeyond. And in terms of advice or encouragement I have for the teachers as they begin the school year, I would say maybe don't lose focus on the students in front of you rather than the curriculum. They're what matters far more than whatever your lesson plan is for that day.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Niman, and I'm the third Culture Kid Care Coordinator with TeachBeyond. I love to begin every school year by making sure I'm outside my classroom every day, to look in each child's eyes as they come in the room, give a handshake if that's still allowed where you are. And, even if it's just handing them the syllabus and introducing yourself, it really kind of affirms that I am a person and you are a person and I am here to get to know you. And everything that we do, we're going to do together. So I think that is just a really important connection point. And in fact, I do that throughout each school year, but I think it's really important to be consistent with that at the beginning.
So, as you begin your school year, I would encourage you to take time to think about where God has placed you, where He has taken you from, and why and who you are now that you are starting the school year. And rejoice in the fact that God has authored your story and that where you're serving now is part of that story. And He's going to continue authoring your story throughout the school year.
Megan, Kian, and I serve with an organization called TeachBeyond. Education plays a big role in missions, and TeachBeyond is a part of that.
As followers of Jesus, TeachBeyond is a global community providing transformational education services as part of God's ongoing mission to transform individuals and communities into all He intends.
Want to learn more and get involved? Visit teachbeyond.org or follow us on social media.
To help more people find the podcast and hear about TeachBeyond, we'd love it if you would leave a rating or review and share the show with a friend.
This is a great episode to pass along to your friends who are starting a new school year.
Be sure you're subscribed or following the show on the platform where you listen so you don't miss the start of our next season.
And as always, you can reach us at podcasts@teachbeyond.org. We'll see you again soon for season 5.